Let's see.
Awesome.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here today for our second SMA meeting of the semester. After we have our speaker go, then we will take care of a few business items. So I will turn it over to Skylar so he can take over.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for everyone who could make it today. I know there's probably going to be a lot of people watching this recording later. So hello, thank you for tuning in. So today, our speaker, I might butcher your name, Mike Medici.
Oh, you got it.
Perfect. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the meeting. Mike is an area scout for the Texas Rangers Baseball Club. Thanks for coming. Welcome.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Mike is a Niagara alumni. So I'm just gonna run through, ask a few questions. Everyone who is here, feel free to stop me, jump in at any time. And I guess we might as well just get started. We just want to hear a few things about your experience and what led you to doing what you do now. So I guess I'll start off with asking if you could tell us a little bit about what you do, your job, and everything now.
Yeah, for sure. And just so like everybody obviously I know not everyone's going to aspire to be a baseball scout. Like I get that. I mean, feel free to ask, other questions or just working in the sport industry, what it's like, things that we're seeing, trends that are happening, because obviously the environment is drastically different right now. We're seeing a lot of changes in Major League Baseball. Obviously, you're seeing them some in the NFL, you see them in NHL, NBA. So, feel free to fire away. It doesn't have to be solely focused on just being an area scout. I've been in professional baseball for 12 years. Started with the Toronto Blue Jays, worked there for 4, and I've been with the Texas Rangers ever since. My role pretty much is, and it's kind of expanded since I started here. I started here, had to oversee, 4 or 5 states in the Midwest. I covered Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. And then they just recently threw Minnesota on top. Why not? It's only 7-8 hours from my house, sure. So my role is I'm looking at all the high school age players and the college age players for that draft. So in this case, this year, our draft got pushed back a little bit just to create some kind of buffer zone with all the potential delays, which we're already seeing. So that's going to happen in July this year. And any player that's eligible is a high school age kid, or if you're a junior college, you're always eligible. If you're at a 4-year, it's after your 3rd year, or if you're 21 within 45 days of the draft, or if you're a senior and beyond that. And I'm going out just evaluating, looking for potential talent to draft. And I'm responsible for everyone, all those eligible players in those states. Now, in years past, in a normal environment, I do a lot of pro stuff. I do some stuff with trades, which honestly is probably some of the most fun things to be a part of when you get a call and it's like, hey, can you get here like now? You just hop in a car, you drive 4 or 5 hours and you go see a pitcher, and then you're on the phone with an assistant GM and a director saying, will you trade so-and-so for this guy? That's been some stuff I've been able to do over the summer, in the summer months. But then I split right back to amateur. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. When you're on the ground floor, you're pretty much responsible for, another way that we always say it is information gather, getting to know the players on a personal level, not just the evaluation on the field, but like literally getting to know them, getting in their heads, finding out what makes them tick. This is a failure sport. Every sport's pretty much a failure sport, but this one, especially because we're dealing with, if you're on the international side, we sign them at 16. Here in the States, obviously 17, 18 is when we sign them. So those guys are gonna go out and fail, and you got to understand their backgrounds, where they've come from. They're gonna be able to handle some of that kind of stuff. And that's some stuff I probably enjoy the most, is getting in these kids' heads and kind of predicting, but understanding that if they go out, they're going to be able to handle some of the adversity they're going to face. So yeah, it's pretty much, we're responsible for all the ins and outs on the ground floor that gets the ball rolling when it comes to the draft.
Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you. I was just wondering, so before where you are now, how did you really get to where you are and what you do now? And maybe a little bit about your college experience, if there's much to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, when you work I always say, like, when you go work in sports, sometimes getting a job, I don't want to say it's a dream job, but getting a job where you're full time, you really enjoy, you love what you're doing. It's a little bit of luck and a little bit of timing. At the same time, like, you got to create some of that luck. So I'm not saying I did it intentionally, but I created some luck. This is going back to 2009. I went up to the World Baseball Classic in Toronto, and McCray, who was the head coach at Canisius, with me, he introduced me to one of the guys in the front office that worked for the Jays. And I just kind of talked to him for a little bit, and I think he was like a coordinator or something, just somebody in the office. And he also worked the gun at the stadium. Fast forward 4 months, the Angels. So the Angels strength coach used to be our strength coach at Niagara. So I wanted to go up and see him. So I went up, drove up to Toronto to see the Angels play the Jays. And then Andrew Tinish was the guy's name that I met back in March. He was in the stadium doing the gun that day. And I just, the Jays stunk at the time. So you could literally just walk wherever. And I just walked down. He's like 5 rows behind home plate, sat down next to him, and I just picked his brain for 5 innings. Just asking him, because I was recruiting. I didn't want to go into pro balls. I was recruiting. I wanted to learn, what is it you look for in players. Next day, McCraig's like, what'd you say to him, man? He called and asked if you'd ever be interested in scouting. Now, this time, totally no interest. Well, that fall, JP Ricciardi got fired, and then they hired Alex Anthopoulos. And Tinish was one Anthopoulos' right-hand man in the office. So Alex took over as GM. He hired Andrew as scouting director, and he gave him 11 new scouting positions. So when you have that many, that's not in 12 years, I've never seen 12 openings on a staff before. It's like unheard of, and they need to hire people. And he basically just called and said, hey, would you be interested in interviewing? So that's what actually got me there. Totally didn't expect it, but that conversation, Andrew always told me, he's like, you never came up to me that day back in June or July, whenever I was there. It's like, you wouldn't be here right now. He just, we kind of meshed, and my interest in learning, he kind of saw a little bit of himself in me at the time. And going back to my college experience, I'll be honest, Mr. Gentile, I wasn't, some A+ student. I was not the best student. I was a student athlete, but I was definitely an athlete first. My goals, I always aspired to, play professionally, but, then they never called. So then I was forced to kind of look in some different ways. But I can say, I was able to at least reflect and go back to, some of the things that I learned there to kind of push myself forward, and try to navigate that. Because I really was not prepared when I got out of college. I thought, I'm going to play pro ball. And that didn't happen. It was like, oh, wow, okay, what now?
Awesome. Oh man, I had a question, but I gotta go back and find it. If anyone,
I have one. Yeah. How much do summer leagues affect your job? Because I know there's a good amount of them.
College summer leagues, they become more and more popular. It'll be interesting to see what happens as MLB is trying to control a little bit more of that. We try to cover as many as we can. Now, Major League Baseball took away 2 levels of the minor leagues. So that's less teams for pro guys to cover, which I used to fill in and do pro stuff. Now, I think what's going to happen is they're going to say, do more amateur in the summer. So I think we're going to be able to cover those more extensively, which is going to be nice. The main ones, Cape Cod, New England, Alaska, Northwoods, Coastal Plain, we cover them a little bit more in depth. Some of the smaller ones, we always try to hit the all-star games. But yeah, they just seem to continue to grow. There's more and more new ones every single year, which, it creates some pretty good opportunities, honestly, if you're looking for internships. I know there was a Niagara student I was covering Falmouth. I don't know, Mr. Gentile, I don't know if you remember Erin Cronin, I think was her name.
Erin Cronin, yeah, that was her.
I'm in Falmouth covering them, and I see Niagara University, and I'm like, boom, instantly attract. Like, all right, I got to find out what's your deal. Who are you? What are you doing here? And because I'll be perfectly honest. It's just, that's it. Like, you take care of your own. Like, if a Niagara student reaches out, needs anything, whatever you need, I'm open book. And that's I think that's, right. That's pretty much all of, at least the group I came through with. You talk about Virtue, Cheeseboro, like we'll do anything for anybody from up there.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other kinds of questions before I go into one more? Maybe. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I got one question. What was one story or an experience you had that was the most like memorable for you, and a player that you scouted and developed and got?
Man, I got all sorts of ones. Who are you a fan of? What team?
I like the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, come on. All right. Do you see Tanner Houck? Did you see him pitch this year? He came up late.
I don't. You can give me any. You can give me any baseball player name. Honestly, I'm pretty familiar with a lot.
Yeah, I always ask just because. All right, I've been doing it 12 years, so now you're really starting to see the cycles come through because it takes it's going to take him 5 years. And Tanner made his debut this summer, but he was a kid I was extremely close to. Really, I mean, to the point where he went out when he got called out. I just texted his mom like, "Hey, it's awesome, congrats." Unfortunately, COVID, you can't really go. There's been a bunch that I've grown really good. Gavin Lux, he went up with the Dodgers, I think last year when they still had fans. He went up. That was a kid I was really close to, but still like by far the best story that I've been a part of is when Ryan Baraki pitches for the Blue Jays. So I signed him in 2012. You know, people ask like, what's the biggest highlight of your job? Like what, you know, and there is bar none, nothing. And at the time I was actually doing a Zoom call and his jersey was hanging behind me. I'm like, that's it. That is by far the best. When you get a phone call from a kid that you signed in 2012, you know, when he weighed like 150 pounds and you're like, man, 5 years, I hope you get there. And then he overcame a bunch of injuries and finally gets there and he calls you. He's like, hey, I'm going to the big leagues. Like there is nothing better than that. Like by far, you know, and then this off season shows, you know, I get the jersey with a message on it, shows up in the mailbox, you know, and yeah, that it's hard to describe. I mean, I didn't get to play professionally. I never got a call to the big leagues, but that's almost just as good. And this year I had Kyle Cody who pitches for us now. I signed him, I don't even know what year it was, 16, 17, you know, and he made his debut. Same thing. Like you get that call, hey man, Cody's going to big leagues. Just it's amazing because you ride the waves with them. Like Baraki, he blew out his first year, so he needed Tommy John. 16 months on the shelf, comes back, was awesome. Bone chips, back on the shelf. Like you ride those waves, you know. And when he sucked in high A, like, and he calls you and he's like, I don't know what the hell's going on. It's like you're going through it with them. And then when they get that call and then you're watching them, you know, I was scouting a game that night. I didn't even care about the game. I just had my phone up and I'm just watching pitch against the Astros, defending world champs in that lineup. And he was great. Yeah, nothing tops that.
Yeah, I can imagine that's gonna be a great feeling.
Yeah, when jerseys show up, that's even better. Just try to line the walls with them. Hopefully, that's at least the goal.
Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, Mike, they shortened the draft quite a bit this past year. And are they going to go that way in the future? And how does that change things? Because, you know, we used to have, what, 30, 40 rounds in the draft. And
I was playing was 50, then we went to 40, which I thought 40 was good. I always thought 30 was ideal. Because back in the day, 40 to 50 were nothing but favors. I still thought 30 to 40 were a lot of favors, so I thought 30 was perfect. 20 is just short for me. I think you can find a lot of good players post 20. You know, we always joke like, you know, obviously Piazza signed in the 61st round back in the day. Albert Pujols was a 13th rounder. You know, you find them all over the draft. So it definitely, you know, the fear is like, are we going to have, because what the commissioner I think wants, he wants to control everything. He wants all this data, all this information. He wants to disperse amongst all the teams. So if you're doing that and you're controlling all of that, like how many scouts do you need? As many scouts? You know, but I always feel, I think that the pro scouts are more in jeopardy because there's so much information, there's so much video. On the amateur side, when people miss, it's because they don't know the person. And the only way to get to know the person is to have people on the ground that go to, you know, normal times, go to these houses and meet with them. Like I've done over 50, 60 Zoom calls with players, you know, and I want to try to just learn about them, learn their background. Because like Ryan Baraki got there because of his makeup. You know, what should we call it? Makeup. Kyle Cody got there because of his makeup. Every scout in the area thought he was the biggest, softest wimp in the world. He's 6'7". They said, like, this guy, he just doesn't compete, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. Well, when you dig into his history and you understand his background, you know why he's kind of a late maturing type kid. And when I presented that, all right, that kind of makes sense. Well, year one, they go, man, this kid's like a man now. Yeah, they're not all going to be acting 25 at 20. Like, they're young kids, you know. And I remember I asked an NBA guy that, and he's like, oh, we have all this stuff set up for them, how to handle press, how to handle media, how to, you know, because they're taking a 19-year-old kid, and you're chucking them in, you know, and basically they're big leagues. We don't do that. We can shelter them in the minor leagues for 3 or 4 years. But yeah, the 20-round draft, it's definitely going to change things. Just from the evaluation process, I was with like a higher up guy with the Royals yesterday. He's like, we're basically looking, if you don't have a plus, we're just moving on. Like, there's no more, I'll take a chance here, because you just can't. And that's why I think teams like us that still have a lot of scouts, we care about the makeup, are going to win, because you can't miss in 20 rounds. You could miss in 40, whatever. We got 20 extra rounds figured out. You cannot miss in 20. It's like in the NFL, you can't miss. You get 6 rounds, you get 6 picks. How do you hit on all of them? You get the makeup right. My hometown Colts, I've gotten to know their player personnel director so well. He does all the interviews with the players in the draft, all the combine interviews, and the guy's unbelievable. And they hit on every draft pick. Big part, because Decker will tell you, he's like, we don't miss on makeup. No makeup concerns in the first 3 rounds. My Giants last year took some clown from Georgia that got in trouble. I text the Colts, what do you have? They said he was on our do not select board. Like, awesome. That's how important the makeup stuff is.
I have a question real fast.
Sure.
So what can you tell us something about your job that people don't realize you do in your job? Does that make sense?
I think that's one of the ones that's like misconstrued. They don't realize like how much. So when I go to interview a player, I already know most of the answers. I had a follow up with a kid at UK that I'm going to see tomorrow. And he's like, Coach D said he talked to you. I'm like, yeah. I go, you think like I was just going to take everything you said from me and not like follow up? You know, he's like kind of just hoping he said good things. I'm like, hey man, he said good things about you. Don't worry about it. I think that's a big one. Like, people don't realize, you know, we follow up, and a lot of these kids don't realize that, you know, I will call your coach, not from this year, but maybe from 2 years ago. You know, for me, it's always people that don't have a vested interest in the kid. They always tell me the truth. The ones with vested interest, like college coaches, they don't tell you the truth. Most of them don't, because they recruited them. They got a vested interest. And I understand. I recruited before. So we always look for the other guys, like strength coaches, SIDs, school, whatever, like academic advisors. They're the best. They know everything. Yeah, I would say that's probably the one thing people don't realize, because they think you just go to games and just scout. That's it. Like, there's so much behind the scenes, and there's a ton more right now, because not only am I navigating, you know, just weather, injuries, I got this freaking virus.
Now, I was gonna actually touch maybe, I mean, it might lead into this kind of virus stuff, but you've talked a little bit already about some of the best things that have happened at your job. What are some of the hardest things you've had to work through?
Yeah. All right. You're always going to work for a jerk. There's going to be somebody you hate. There's always going to be a boss or a coworker that's just, you know, we call them like climbers, that are just going to irk you to your core. You know, I think it's just so important to continue with just like your values, how you approach things. It's so easy, you know, because it's a very competitive industry. You know, everybody wants to rise to the top, and you get caught up in that environment. I just think it's the ones that keep their head down, work hard, stick to their values, and just do things the right way are gonna come out in the end. Because at least in this game, I see it all the time. The ones that we like I said, we kind of call them climbers. But you're always going to work for somebody you can't stand, and that's not easy. It's definitely a hard thing. But I think when you are in those situations, you can take something from it. You know, you might have to alter, you might have to change your approach, how you go about things, just to appease them. even in the most challenging ones, but I still think you can always learn from it, take something from it. Like I hated my second director in Toronto, absolutely hated it. He had no personality, just dry, and he got fired like 3 or 4 years later. But I look back and I'm like, oh, what could I have done different to make that working relationship better? Was I not a good enough communicator? I always think there's something you can learn because it's inevitable. You're gonna be with a coworker or have a boss that you cannot stand. But I've been fortunate. Most of the time, outside of him, it's been pretty good.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's really important, actually, to always, keep in the back of your head. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone else here have anything else, maybe?
I do, if I might. Mike, I think you and I have talked about this once or twice. It's we're old baseball guys, and the eye test is important, and as you say, the makeup, and everybody wants to go to analytics these days. How has that changed your job? And how does that affect you trying to convince somebody to take someone over somebody else?
You just want to strike a nerve, don't you?
Yeah.
It's, and this is so if I ran a department, it would be player development, analytics, scouting, just all meshed into one. I don't understand why we take analytics and we put them way over here and we have our scouts way over here and they all hate each other. And part of it's like, all right, if we take the analytics and we teach it to the scouts, these guys are irrelevant and they worry about their jobs. It happens all the time. It's really hard to challenge those guys because they're it's black and white. To me, teach the analytics guys how to evaluate, teach the scouts how to utilize the analytics. I think the Rays do one of the best jobs of that. One of my close friends is a pro director down there, and he fights them all the time. He'll tell me, when we traded for Nicky Solak, who I love, I pushed for him hard in that trade. He goes, you got your guy. He goes, I didn't want to do it, but the analytics guys won out. But it's got to be a working relationship. It has to be a blend of the two. I do think, and one thing I would say is, like, for anyone coming through, whether it's baseball, it's any sport, like, kind of try to diversify yourself. Like I tell people that want to scout, learn the analytics. If you're an analytics person, that's your background, go learn how to scout. Don't be one track, because what's I've seen happen in scouting is we're losing a lot of good scouts. And part of it's, a lot of them are much older than me. They refuse to evolve and change. Like the game changes. Like you've got to change with it. You got to adapt. If you don't adapt, they're just going to get rid of you. There's one that he's like 2 years from retirement. I don't know how many times I've shown him how to use like his phone and how to utilize video. It's like, but he's at least trying to learn. Unfortunately, I have really good friends that are just out of the game now because they just don't want to learn. I think it's important to diversify yourself because, eventually, at least what I'm seeing in the game, it's going to give this big group of people working these departments, it's just going to get streamlined. And if you're one that can you're jack of all trades, you can do multiple things, you're just more valuable. Like if you're just an evaluator, you're replaceable. If you can do this and that, you just create value for yourself.
Anyone else have anything, maybe?
Can I ask for a scouting report, Skylar?
Huh?
On who?
I'm an Indian fan, right? Emmanuel Clase.
Oh yeah, we screwed that up bad because he's good. We got him as a throw-in, actually. I don't know what in the world is funny. Remember Sal Pisano?
Yeah.
So I talked to Sal. They waive Fulton Evans. Fulton Evans from Chicago. I scouted him in high school. So they waive Fulty. And I call him like, do we pick up Fulty? And so he filled me in on him. You're not supposed to do that, but that's how we get information. And he told me, and he's like, the hell are you guys taking Clevenger for? He goes, I could have told you he was going to get hurt. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I mean, and you see this, it's total red flag. He's like, delivery's going to break down. We give up Class A, who's, throws like 99-mile-an-hour cutters. He's a guy we really liked. He was probably at the forefront. That was probably a big piece in that deal. You just picked up Owen Miller. I had Owen Miller at Illinois State. I think he's a really good player. You picked up a big left-hander from the Padres in the Clevenger deal.
Allen?
Cantillo.
Oh, Cantillo, yeah.
Yeah, really deceptive. Breaking ball wasn't great, but just like can't see the ball out of his hand. I saw him in A-ball. There's some pretty good guys they got in that deal. The one of their top prospects I got a report on, I can share with you. I dropped a pretty good grade on him when he was in A-ball. Can't even remember his name, but he can hit. He's in big league camp. Second baseman. They signed him out of high school from Cal.
Freeman?
Yep. Wrote him up pretty good.
Yeah, good.
Like him, like this 19 in a league that the average age was like 21, and the kids was awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I share my reports all the time. Like Paul DeYoung, shortstop for the Cardinals. I'm like, here's a big whiff. You know, I loved him, but not where he is now.
Mhm. Sorry, Skylar, I didn't mean to dominate the conversation.
Okay, all good. Peyton, you can go for it.
Yeah, I just got one quick question. How much do you travel? I'm assuming you travel a decent amount with how many players and people you have to look at.
My second night here at the Louisville Marriott East, 3 days. So I would, you know, they always say like you got your whatever your stats and as a player. So like as a scout, take the whole pandemic crap out of it. 15 to 20 flights a year, 100 nights in a hotel, 50,000 miles in a car. Me and the oil change guy, we're tight. It's bad when you start to know those people, but you start showing off every 2-3 weeks. It's just like, man, what are you doing? And then you tell them what you do, and then that opens another bag of worms. Yeah, I don't care what industry you're in. If you're in scouting, you're in player development, it doesn't matter. You're going to travel. Like I have friends in the NFL, the NBA, NHL. The NHL is like, there's no domestic. You're all international. Like there's nobody tied to the States. They're like, oh yeah, I cover over here. I go to Russia. It's unbelievable. NBA, it's more concentrated towards conferences. NFL is more regions of how they do it. But it's super cool, man. You ever talk to scouts in other leagues, just like comparing, contrasting how they do things versus how we do things? Like they're so interested. They think it's just so cool. And I think same thing on their end. It's just interesting hearing like how you see things versus, you know, what way we see them. We just watch a game on TV.
Any last questions or comments?
Unfortunately, I have one last comment, Skylar.
That is okay. You can go for it.
And Mike knows where I'm going with this, because if I had to pick a student 12 or 15 years ago that I would say I would never have speak as an alumnus or wouldn't want to speak as one, right, Mike? It would be Mike Medici. And because he was the guy who wanted to be a pro player, and you know, he kind of went through school that way. And since he graduated and all the twists and turns he's had, all the life experiences have been tremendous for all of our students that he's talked to. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this is a blast for me. Like I said, I am an absolute open book when I see Niagara University, and it's cool. I don't see it out here too much. But you know, when I do, like when I saw Aaron in Falmouth, like who would have thought I see a Niagara University sweatshirt Falmouth, Massachusetts at a Cape game. It's like I just enter my card, like whatever you need, just let me know. You know, more than happy to help. You know, one thing I would say is, like I said before, diversify yourself as best you can. If there's an industry, if there's anything you're interested in, I urge, because when people ask me like, how do I get into scouting? Like, utilize LinkedIn. Connect with people in industries that you're interested in, ask them questions. I would say if you email 20, 19 are probably not going to respond, but that one it may give you something, you know, and because I respond to everybody. And they always say like, man, no one ever responds. But you create that connection. And one of those connections I made probably 5 years ago, now he's a pro scout in Tampa. You know, who knows? I mean, the kid, maybe he's on the fast track. Next thing you know, he's a director. And then hopefully maybe he'll hire me over there at some point. You know, you just never know. You know, so like network, utilize those connections, ask people, and maybe it saves you. Maybe you're like, man, I thought the industry was cool, and this guy's telling me it sucks. It's going to save you some a little bit of hassle. So, I just think it's so different now than when I was in school in '06, when I left in '06, how much more is out there that you can just take advantage of.
Awesome. Well, do you have any like questions and comments for us as students?
That's the big one I was thinking about on the way up here. Like, just, I talked with Dr. Davis and students at UTM. That was kind of the same thing, like diversify, learn skills. I think that's when you talk with people that are hiring, they want skills. Like, what are you good at? What can you do? What kind of value do you bring? That's why I say, no matter what industry, like, look at the different avenues that you can take to get there. And the biggest thing in everything's like a stepping stone, especially working in sports. It takes more time. If you were an accounting major, you're going to get out, maybe you go work at PwC, you start out as an auditor or something and work your way up, and when you go into the sport world, it's very competitive. Everybody wants to work in it. Obviously, it's super cool. Like, my job is a conversation starter no matter where I am. The minute somebody finds out what I do, because this computer comes with me a lot when I go out to eat, and I just sit there, I do my work. And what are you doing? I tell them, like, then I get nothing done because they're going to ask me if there's any questions, which is fine. It's a cool gig. It's very competitive, so, you want to just keep on, you're going to bounce around. You're going to do a job you probably don't like. But those 2 steps back are going to propel you forward. Like, I see it all the time, especially like in the baseball world. I meet somebody that became a scout, and like, oh, I interned here. And then I got this. And I think that's pretty right. I mean, it's pretty consistent with, I think, a lot of positions in the sport world. You're going to bounce around, you're going to grind. It's going to take some internships and, get out of your comfort zone. I was in my comfort zone for like probably way too long. Like, get out of the comfort zone, you know, push through that, try some other things. I think that's really important.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate the time. I know you're super busy, but thanks. You are, if anyone has any other questions, we'll be sure to get you Mike's contact information. But besides that, thank you so much for being here.
Got it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it. Have a
so
nice-
much.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Well, we have just a couple things to talk about, I'm pretty sure. What was the first one? We talked about a couple of things before this. Lauren, do you want to take it away?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So everyone here has paid their dues, correct?
No, I didn't.
No, $25.
Yeah.
I'll owe it to you.
Wyatt and Mike, you both have, correct? I
Yeah.
assume.
I'm good.
Okay, good. So next week we have our social media panel, which is our first of 3. So we ask you to at least dress business casual. Professional would be great, but casual at least. And let me look.
Yeah, if you got one of the sport management polos last fall or the pullover that is a little bit nicer, that's a great thing to wear next week during our panel.
So then
And we
just,
will post the list of speakers right after this meeting on Instagram along with the link. Do we have a link ready for that one?
I will have it ready in momentarily.
All good. But yeah, we'll post those together on the Instagram. If you guys who are here aren't following the Instagram
and
Are
the
you-
Twitter.
and the Twitter, let us know.
The masks, I
then-
think, was the other thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sorry, I'm not sure where to start with those. Anthony, are there any updates on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we are able to make a store, an online store. So we can do pretty much any colors that we want. I think we were talking about for mass, black, white, possibly like a light gray / silver. And then the prints would be white on black, purple on white, purple on silver if we were to do that. So we can make the store, the link can be sent to whoever. So that should be pretty easy for anybody to order what they want.
Awesome. The logo would be the same as what we used in the fall, the Niagara University Sport Management. So that way, these masks, you can wear them when you're doing anything sport related, or when we've talked about doing a couple day trips later this semester. Since we have that ability now, then those are great to wear during those trips as well.
That would technically be the uniform. Instead of getting polos again, we ask you to wear your mask.
Yes.
And it'll be the exact same mask that everyone received at, like, when you started the semester. Everyone got the 2 NU ones. It'll be the exact same ones.
Just a little info on the day trip. I just saw the message in the chat. We would be planning to take a trip on the last Saturday of March. However, I do need to call again to see if we are allowed to take a tour through the Bills Stadium. I put in like a request to do a tour, never got anything back just yet, but we're still gonna plan on that day. I'll make a phone call straight to the ticket office and see if they have, if there's anyone in there, if they have any sort of information, or if they'll allow, obviously, a student organization to take a small group through the stadium. For the day trip that day, that Saturday, what time
It's
did
the 27th, right?
Yep.
Okay.
What time did we say that day? I think we said 1 or noon. Sorry, office talked about something before, but I guess time of day TBD. Once we kind of get more information from them, if we can't, we might have to do some calling about somewhere else. But if that is the trip, it would probably be our only one trip for this semester. So we will have a bus available. We did budget to take a trip, and they're just allowing us to have a bus for one trip. So we might as well take the bus to this one. We could have carpooled, but they insisted that we just budget for it, and I was like, all right, whatever. Yeah, but that's pretty much all I have for now on that. I'll be sure to get back, hopefully get some information back from them soon. Yeah, are there any questions from the people who are here, or did we leave anything out? Awesome. Maybe. All good? Cool. All right, well, that concludes the meeting for tonight. Yeah, we will be posting a list of speakers on the Instagram and the Twitter momentarily once we conclude everything here, and we will have a link with them. And I think that's just about it. The link for the store, we can put that together pretty soon. So that will be out soon. So.
Please be prepared with some questions next week since it's a panel. I know only a couple asked tonight, but clearly it's a panelist. We kind of want more conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I think we have Trevor Howell once again doing the panel for us. So yeah, speakers will be Andy Cheeseborough, Brianna Jacobs, and Rob Hardin. So fantastic. You guys will see those online pretty soon. All right. Thanks for everyone, or for showing up, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.